over the skies of northern France. General Adolf Galland, veteran of the Luftwaffe and one of its most accomplished fighter aces, pushed his Messerschmitt Bf 109 into a climbing turn. Ahead of him, what should have been a routine target, an American fighter, moved across the sky with awkward, lumbering grace. Pilots had nicknamed it the Flying Milk Bottle, a mocking reference to its stocky, ungainly frame. But appearances can be deceiving. Galland lined up his shot, expecting an easy kill. Then the impossible happened. The American fighter, a P-47 Thunderbolt, rolled inverted and dove in a controlled high-speed maneuver, plummeting from 25,000 feet almost to ground level within seconds. Galland tried to follow, but his aircraft, normally responsive and precise in a dogfight, stiffened at high velocity. By the time he recovered, the Thunderbolt had vanished. He returned to base shaken. A veteran of the Spanish Civil War and the Battle of Britain, he had never seen anything like this. That evening, he filed a detailed report. The P-47 was not a joke. It was fast, possibly faster than the Bf 109 at high altitude. Heavily armed with 850 caliber machine guns capable of destroying a German fighter in seconds, and astonishingly resilient, able to return from hits that would have downed almost any Luftwaffe aircraft. Galland's conclusion was clear. The P-47 was a serious threat, and Luftwaffe tactics would need to change immediately. He sent his report to Reichsmarschall Hermann Goring, commander of the Luftwaffe. He expected action, tactical revisions, perhaps accelerated development of aircraft to counter the Thunderbolt. Instead, he was met with silence. A week later, he was summoned to Goring's estate. By 1943, Goring was a shadow of the charismatic fighter ace he had once been. Once a decorated pilot of the First World War, he had devolved into a vain, indulgent figure, obsessed with looted art, addicted to drugs, and increasingly disconnected from reality. As the strategic bombing campaign intensified, German cities burned under Allied raids, yet Goring clung to the delusion of invincibility. Galland began his briefing, detailing the P-47's performance, intelligence from frontline units, and technical specifications, speed, firepower, combat radius. Every fact pointed to the same conclusion. The American Thunderbolt was dominant. Goring's response was predictable, explosive, and irrational. "This is defeatist propaganda," he screamed. "The Americans cannot build fighters. They are good at refrigerators, maybe, but fighters? Impossible." Galland tried to interject. He had witnessed the P-47's capabilities firsthand. He had hard data. He was describing reality. Goring's face turned purple. "Are you questioning my judgment, General? I commanded fighters in the Great War. I know air combat." Galland knew he was treading dangerous ground. Contradicting a superior in Hitler's Germany could be fatal. Yet he pressed on. "Reichsmarschall, I am reporting what I have observed. The P-47 is a serious threat. If we do not adapt our tactics, German pilots will die unnecessarily." Goring waved him off dismissively. "You worry too much. The Luftwaffe is invincible. These American bombers and their escorts are temporary inconveniences. Once our new jets are operational, we will sweep them from the sky. Now, I have more important matters to attend to." Dismissed. Galland left in disbelief. Facts had been presented, evidence laid bare, yet ideology and denial prevailed. The leadership's refusal to acknowledge reality, Galland realized, was a lethal flaw. Months later, his fears were realized. American P-47 Thunderbolts, flying escort for bombers, appeared in ever-increasing numbers over Germany. They employed a doctrine unfamiliar to German pilots: boom and zoom. Climb to high altitude, dive on enemy fighters at terrifying speed, unleash devastating firepower, and climb back to safety. German pilots, trained for tight dogfighting maneuvers and optimized for agility, were systematically destroyed when they tried to engage on American terms. The Bf-109 and FW-190 could not match the Thunderbolt's speed and armor at high altitude. Even seasoned aces like Galland found themselves struggling to survive. Loss rates skyrocketed, experienced pilots died. New recruits were slaughtered in the first week. Every tactical advantage the Luftwaffe had once enjoyed was nullified by industrial and technological superiority, combined with innovative combat doctrine. By February 1944, Galland's worst fears were realized. The Allies launched Operation Argument, later known as Big Week, a coordinated assault on the German aircraft industry aimed at achieving air superiority before the planned invasion of France. For 6 days, waves of American B-17 and B-24 bombers, escorted by P-47 Thunderbolts, P-38 Lightnings, and the new P-51 Mustangs, hammered aircraft factories across Germany. The Luftwaffe rose to defend, pouring every available fighter into the sky. The battles were apocalyptic. On the first day alone, over 200 German fighter sorties attempted to intercept the bombers, but they faced opponents they could not match. P-47s would dive on German formations, unleashing a torrent of 50 caliber bullets capable of tearing wings from Bf-109s and FW-190s. Even when hit, the Thunderbolt continued fighting, nearly indestructible compared to the fragile German aircraft. Galland himself led multiple missions. On one engagement over Brunswick, his wingman was shot down in seconds. Galland narrowly avoided destruction, his aircraft riddled with more than 300 bullet holes. One well-placed hit could have ended his life. And yet, the P-47s emerged unscathed, returning to high altitude to strike again. By the end of Big Week, the statistics were grim. Over 350 Luftwaffe fighters and nearly 100 bombers had been lost. More than 250 pilots, many experienced veterans, were killed or missing, losses the Luftwaffe could not replace. The American forces, by contrast, lost around 250 bombers and fewer than 30 fighters, all of which could be replaced in weeks. Galland filed yet another urgent report. Once again, he warned that the Luftwaffe could not compete in a war of attrition against Allied industrial might. The P-47, once dismissed as a joke, was now a symbol of what German leadership had failed to recognize. The combination of superior aircraft, effective tactics, and relentless production capacity could not be overcome by bravery or skill alone. The Luftwaffe's attrition rates were staggering. By 1944, new pilots were sent to combat with minimal training, often fewer than 50 hours of flight time. Experienced aces could not be everywhere at once, and the best German pilots were being worn down by relentless engagements against better equipped and better supported enemies. Goring continued to deny reality, blaming pilot cowardice rather than admitting the flaws in strategy and production. Galland watched in despair as his warnings went unheeded. The P-47 Thunderbolt and P-51 Mustang were transforming the skies over Germany into a death zone for the Luftwaffe. By November 1944, Galland had reached his breaking point. Along with other senior fighter commanders, he drafted a letter directly to Goring, a blunt, insubordinate demand for operational autonomy and acknowledgement of Luftwaffe failures. The letter accused leadership of incompetence, denial, and interference that cost pilots their lives. Signed by some of the most decorated and respected fighter pilots, it was a direct challenge to authority. Goring's response was swift and brutal. He labeled the signatories traitors, threatened court-martial and execution, and removed Galland from command. For a man who had dedicated his life to aerial combat, it was a devastating blow. Galland would spend the remainder of the war under house arrest, forbidden from flying combat missions, witnessing from the sidelines as the Luftwaffe collapsed under the weight of its own failures and Allied dominance. In a final desperate measure, Galland was allowed to form Jagdverband 44, an elite unit equipped with the revolutionary Me-262 jet fighter. In the hands of skilled pilots, it was a formidable aircraft, fast, heavily armed, and deadly. But it was too late. Germany lacked fuel, trained pilots, and the infrastructure to turn this technological marvel into a game-changer. While Galland's unit achieved minor successes, the strategic situation was irreversible. Germany had lost the air war. Adolf Galland survived the war, living until 1996. In later years, he reflected on the decisions and misjudgments that doomed the Luftwaffe. The P-47 Thunderbolt, once mocked as a clumsy American fighter, had become a decisive weapon. Galland's story illustrates a timeless lesson. Ideology and arrogance can blind even the most capable individuals and institutions to reality. Ignoring an enemy's capabilities, dismissing evidence, and punishing truth-tellers can be as lethal as any weapon. The Thunderbolt's legacy was not only in its firepower or ruggedness, but in its role as a mirror reflecting the fatal errors of a leadership that refused to see what was in front of them. Adolf Galland's story is a stark reminder that courage alone cannot overcome strategic blindness. The P-47 Thunderbolt, once dismissed as an overweight, crude fighter, revealed the fatal flaws of German leadership. The Luftwaffe was filled with skill and bravery, yet it was systematically destroyed by a combination of industrial might, superior tactics, and the relentless execution of reality by the Allies. History is rarely kind to those who ignore evidence, and the skies over Europe in 1943–44 were a testament to that truth. Galland's warnings went unheeded, and the consequences were catastrophic. The Thunderbolt did more than shoot down aircraft. It shattered illusions, exposed weaknesses, and forced a reckoning no ideology could withstand. If you found this deep dive into World War II's air war compelling, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. We explore the overlooked stories, technological innovations, and strategic decisions that shaped history from the perspective of those who lived it, sometimes on both sides of the conflict. And don't stop here. Check out our playlist of World War II documentaries for more detailed explorations of battles, pilots, and the machine that defined the war. Each story reveals a piece of the complex puzzle that was the Second World War. The courage, the mistakes, and the technology that changed everything. Remember, history isn't just about what happened. It's about understanding why it happened and learning from it. The skies over Germany in 1944 taught one lesson above all. Never underestimate your enemy, and never ignore reality, no matter how inconvenient it may be.